Folks, in this life, there's nothing more certain than death. Unless, that's what they tell us. Like, scientists come over with their facts and logic and tell us statistically that 100% of people that lived have died. Yeah, but here we are. I'm still alive. You're still alive watching this, right? So really, they don't know for sure that we can all die. They're just going based off of like previous information. So let's take death with a grain of salt. You know who else takes death with a grain of salt? Superhero comics, an industry that's called a perfect segue. One of the biggest criticisms comics seem to get is that death is meaningless, and I have to say that people who think that are stupid. People who think that have shit. People who think that are misguided. Yeah, death has become this thing in comics where you see someone is gonna die and you kind of think, okay, yeah, but they're a big character, so are they really gonna stay dead for that long? Or is it a fake out, or what's the deal? And that aspect of it, I think, is a fair thing to consider, that these characters are characters, and they are, at this point, IP more than they are characters. The fair side of this criticism is that it's very frustrating as a fan to keep having this carrot dangled in front of you for it to not actually mean anything in the long run. But my argument would be that I think we're failing ourselves as readers as well. I think we're allowing this giant corporate mindset to ruin the individual stories that we are actually experiencing. Sure, these characters might not die for the long run, but they are dying for the sake of this story. So if we like these characters and the way they're being written in the story that we're reading in front of us, I think that the criticism should be a little bit more held to the story we're reading instead of the long-term longevity of this decision. But with that being said, there's been a lot of deaths in comics, to the point that it is kind of like, how many times can we really do this kind of sensationalized story? So today we're going to take a look at some of these deaths and talk about what worked with them and what didn't work with them. Oh yeah, but that's not all. No, we're going to also rank these deaths on a scale that I've made. And of course that means that my opinion is fact, law, and objective. And that's right, baby, we're doing a tier list! So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Hold it! Oh, this? Oh yeah. That's what happens when you get money. You see, once you start rolling in the dough and become about the hustle, about the grind, about the manosphere mindset, once you get rid of the woke virus, then you can finally start manifesting and dynamicizing the dreams of your reality and break out the matrix. So just for fun, we're not going to do the typical S to F tier. Instead, we're going to go off of this ranking right here. Or here. Whichever side I put it on. And why not start with the one that started it all? The death of Superman. Now, this is not the first death in comics, not the most long-lasting one either, but it really is contributed in a lot of ways for the death and rebirth of comics. And very fairly, it's a big sensationalized event that was manufactured in order to get people into the stores, and it worked really well. Too well. I'm not gonna get into the big history of how the death of Superman was the death of comics for a minute, but let's talk about if this comic is good or not. Yeah, a lot of people are gonna tell you no. I think the comic's really fun. It's a very fun event that I think leads up to a very beautiful final issue. The last issue of Death of Superman is a wet dream for artists. Each page is a splash page that just shows the dynamicism of the artist. It's really kinetic, it's really impactful, it's really beautiful. Each of these pages is really just a work of art, and it really shows you why comics are so powerful and impactful. Now, my big problem with this comic is that while I like it a lot, there's a lot of things that are happening that are very of its time. When I think about criticizing things, I do take into account that I'm not reading it in the time that it was being written for, but at some point that's kind of gotta give. This doesn't spend a lot of time of getting you attached to all the surrounding supporting cast. This is a comic that says, oh, you've been reading Superman? Here's a Superman story that's gonna end it all. And I've said it multiple times, I'm the type of person that can just jump to the comic, and continuity be damned, I can still enjoy it if it's a good comic. But it really feels like these other characters were kind of just there to show like, oh, this is a threat that only Superman can really handle. And also here's some like Joe Schmoes that you don't know about unless you've been reading the comics. And I went back and read these Superman comics around this time, so I do eventually now understand the context around the lead up to this. But most people aren't gonna read that. But the actual death of the character is why we're really here, and the death I think really works well. I think the biggest flaw is that Doomsday is just a character that's a gimmick. He is here just to kill Superman, but the build up to the fight is really, really good. Like the first time we see this guy, we don't know what his whole deal is, and immediately he's just kind of like, oh, here's what I'm about. And we start to learn who this character is from just him interacting with the world and seeing his path of destruction. I do think he gets a lot more characterization outside of this comic, but I do like what we get. This is a character that's just about the action. If you know anything about me, I love that. And I think the comic does a really good job of building up the threat that this character imposes. He is a character just about murder. He's about destruction. He's about fighting. And so Superman has to fight something that has no motivations except for, I'm gonna kill you. Superman himself doesn't get a lot of build up to make this story really impactful as a finale for him until the final issues where it's really a, oh shit, no, I'm going to die type of story. So I think that's where my biggest flaw for this story is that I wish there was more time with his immediate supporting cast around him to see how their relationship works for someone who's just hopped to the story that doesn't have the full context of having read the series before this. So while I do think I like this comic a lot, and I even think it's a very good comic, I have to put this in, yeah, sure, it's a very good comic. I think combined with The Return of Superman, it's a fantastic comic, but standalone, while I think it's a lot of fun and I think it's great, I don't think it's really the best margin of what makes a Death of story perfect. Next up we have the Death of Superman again. Is that right? Yeah, of course it's right. These superheroes die multiple times all the time. It's actually kind of ridiculous. This time it was the New 52 Superman, and the idea of this was really around New 52 was a successful but failed experiment. Sales-wise, it was successful, and for new readers, it was successful. It got a lot of new readers, myself included, into DC Comics a lot more. Before this, I was just kind of picking up random books at the library, but once New 52 started, I was picking up monthly issues, so it was very successful in getting new fans on board. But it was really continuity slur? Woo! It was really a continuity mishap. People liked the continuity before this. The pre-New 52 continuity was something that people were like, oh, there's a lot going on, it's confusing, and maybe it's too much, but we like these characters the way they are. And New 52 said, fuck that. And New 52 Superman was no stranger to this. He was even in New 52, was written in 3 different ways throughout the entirety of it. So behind the scenes, DC decided to do a rebirth type of event to bring in some of the fresh feelings of the original universe and have a new starting on point that mimics the energy of New 52 but isn't so edgy and modern. And to really get that ball rolling, they reintroduced the pre-New 52 Superman. But now there's 2 Supermans running around. That's way too confusing. What's a boy to do? They kill New 52. A lot of different events that happen during New 52 actually factor into his death, but all you need to know is that his cells are dying. His death is sped up when he has to fight this character called the Imposter, and he's exposed to even more radiation, and honestly, this story I think works pretty well. It's almost like a last minute, hey, I hope you guys like this character because we're about to kill him for New 52 Superman, and it did kind of win me over. Before this, the only New 52 Supermans I liked were written by Greg Pak and Gene Lewin Yang, and Grant Morrison. I don't think this is a bad story. I think it's actually a good send-off for a character that I didn't care about, that no one cared about. I also think the lead up for it is actually better than it is in Death of Superman. This time around, he actually has time to talk to his friends and explain what's happening, and there's a lot more human, emotional moments versus just a bunch of setup. So once again, Superman has to go in the yeah, sure category. If I could, I would put this lower than the Death of Superman because I don't think it's as impactful or memorable, but it's fine. Next up, we have the Death of Spider-Man. Spider-Man dies fighting Morlun, and I think it's a very fun event. Spider-Man dies fighting a vampiric character named Morlun, who is, again, kind of like Doomsday, just out to kick ass. Morlun's trying to suck the life out. Morlun's trying to suck the spiritual energy out of Spider-Man or some shenanigans like that. And it's again a very good story with some very memorable moments. This isn't the first time Morlun and Spider-Man fight. It won't be the last, I assure you of that. But again, I think the story does a really good job of making Morlun a very convincing threat. I like him. Some people call him a gimmick character, but again, I just like characters that are I'm here to kick ass. I think that's so fun. And the stakes are really felt the entire length of this story. And Peter goes out like a boss. He goes out fighting Morlun to the death. He kills Morlun and then dies from his wounds, saving Mary Jane, the love of his life. Honestly, there's no better way to go. He did what? Well, I guess after that, he just came back, in the same story, just came out of a cocoon. Gross. Now this might be a little bit surprising, but I'm gonna put this one in now that's how it's done. I think the story lead up is very good. I think it's very impactful. It's kind of a nice conclusion to a Spider-Man story, and it just keeps going after that. I think the afterwards of the cocoon thing is kind of a little bit lame. Like, he wasn't gonna die, he came back immediately. We at least got that out of the way instead of waiting like 7 months for it. But the story's just really good, I like it. Next up is The Walking Dead. And now when I say that, I'm talking about 3 different characters. First is the most popular one, Glenn. I think Glenn's death is very well done. It's very impactful. There's a reason it happens and it keeps the story going. It's a big turning point for the series that already has a lot of characters that I love. Like Tyrese is one of my favorite characters in comics, and his death is just really sad and brutal. And Glenn's is basically the same way, but I feel like it was a lot more impactful and a lot more surprising and shocking. Again, there's a lot of deaths, so to stand out, you have to do something drastic. And I think Negan's entrance and the exit of Glenn is the perfect double combo of that. But the other 2 deaths I want to talk about happen after that. Andrea is a character that doesn't work in the show, but has a fantastic arc in the comics. She goes from someone who's really weak and hiding behind other people to being a powerhouse and impactful leader in the community. They get out of so many situations because of her leadership, because of her skills, and because of her character. And behind the scenes, there's a lot of like romance going on between her and other characters, and her finding independence. I think she's just really, really well written. And her death broke me. In the issue before she dies, she gets bitten by a zombie, so you know it's coming, and there's no time to really do anything to save her. So it really is a month of you preparing yourself for the next issue, and the next issue hits home hard. At the time, she's in a relationship with Rick Grimes, and he's the one who has to put her out of her misery. And it's a really sad, unfortunate scenario, and the whole time I just remember thinking, why? Why did this have to happen? And the answer is, because. Death just happens, and it's sad, and you don't want to see it happen to your favorite people, but it does. I read this, I think, in high school or college, and it was a really sad day for me reading this final issue, walking to the store, picking it up, looking at it, tears rolling down my face as I know what's happening, and I just love this issue. And the final death from The Walking Dead I want to talk about is Rick Grimes himself. The final issue of Walking Dead just happens. I remember being on the internet a day before the issue was supposed to come out, and there were solicitations for issues to come out after this, so it was a huge surprise for everyone. But it got leaked a day beforehand, so I made sure I got my copy from my local comic book store. And in this final issue, Rick Grimes just dies. He gets shot by someone who's just afraid of Rick's leadership, and it's a petty death that shouldn't have happened. It's an unnecessary death, and it really speaks to what this story is really about. And it's about humanity, all of its layers, the good, the bad, the ugly. Rick Grimes is on the path to victory in the sense that they're rebuilding society from the ground up, and it looks like it's going to work, and he's going to be a huge part of it. And then he's just gone. He set up all these stones and all these bricks and all this blood to get where he was at, to get society back on track, and it's just taken away from him. It's very sad, it's very impactful, and it's just a fucking good book. So for me, I have to put Glenn and Rick's death that's how it's done. I think it's very good, it's damn near perfect, it's great storytelling and fits the world perfectly, but Andrea's death is untouchable in my eyes. It's exactly how it's supposed to be done, it's exactly how you do a character's arc, it's exactly how you do a character's death. It's perfect, it's sad, it's gut-wrenching. Next up is, what the hell? I swear to God, I'm not doing this on purpose. Is Spider-Man again? What? Yeah, that's right. Spider-Man dies again. Yep, that's right. Spider-Man dies again. In the lead up to the Superior Spider-Man, where Doc Ock becomes Spider-Man, Peter Parker is still Spider-Man, and he's been Spider-Man for a long time. In a landmark issue that's a culmination of a whole arc where Peter and Doc Ock swap bodies, Peter is stuck in Doc Ock's aging body and is trying to get his own back. I have a lot of criticisms of Dan Slott's Spider-Man run, but the Superior Spider-Man area is somewhere where I have very few criticisms, with exceptions. And I do have some criticism about this death. I don't think the story is that great. It feels like kind of like your regular Spider-Man story, and even though you know it's leading up to a big change, there isn't really a lot of urgency in reading it that you're kind of like, oh my god, he might die. The whole time I was just kind of like, alright, yeah, we're doing this story to get to the next thing, which is Superior Spider-Man, whatever that is. At the time, we did know that it wasn't going to be Peter Parker behind the mask of Superior Spider-Man, but we didn't know how he was going to get there. So death was on the table, but I wasn't taking it too seriously at the time. I really thought he was just gonna kind of like walk away or retire or something like that, or just be broken or in a coma. No, what happens is he loses. He loses and he dies, and so Doc Ock has to become Spider-Man in his place. And we're not here to talk about Superior Spider-Man, but the aftermath of this event is a lot more interesting than the event itself. Again, the death is just kind of like rudimentary Spider-Man stories. You really don't even feel the urgency of the stakes while reading the story. It's only in hindsight that you're kind of like, oh shit, this was very serious. So I love Superior Spider-Man. I don't love this lead up to it. I gotta put this in and stay dead. Not because I thought Spider-Man was actually going to stay dead, but because I was fucking done with this story. There's never a reason to revisit it. If you're going to read Superior Spider-Man, just go read it. This death of Spider-Man is just nothing. Next up is the death of Captain Marvel. This is a landmark moment for Marvel again, and it's for two reasons. One, this is their first graphic novel, according to them. The tides are changing for comics, and graphic novels are becoming more of an in, and I think this works as a really good entryway into Marvel Comics. Now, I'm not the biggest Captain Marvel fan, even modernly, but this death really works well for me. I don't know a lot about him, but you basically get the whole snapshot of his life because Marvel is telling his story as an autobiography. The reveal of how he's gonna die is also really tragic and really well done. They're going on this journey to visit Thanos' statue because Thanos was turned to stone after the events of Infinity Watch, I think. And then a fight breaks out of Thanos' worshippers, and Captain Marvel is just tired. He's tired and tuckered out from this fight, and it should be an easy fight, so that's surprising. Then he starts coughing, and then he reveals that he has cancer. It's a really surprising moment if you don't know where this story is coming from or going. And it's also revealed that the way he got cancer is from a rudimentary fight. A fight from a while ago, a villain releases gas into his face, and that's where he gets cancer from. It's surprisingly sad and tragic. This is something that could happen to any superhero. That happens to every superhero. And despite all of his powers and all of his capabilities and all the smartest minds in the world working round the clock to try to figure out how to help him, they can't. Cancer is just this thing in Marvel that is untreatable, and it's very sad to see him go like this. But because of the way he goes, it's even more human. Most people watching this have known someone who has had or will have cancer. It's a very sad statistic, but a real one, and I think it's very brave for this comic to tackle that. And again, there is no magical cure. There is no saving grace. He does die of cancer here. He withers away. It's very sad. He's surrounded by loved ones. He even has his enemies come at... Hey man, you can't do that. Was he a Republican? I'm conflicted on this one because I want to put it in untouchable, but I also feel like I have to put it in that's how it's done. I think the big drawback for this is that there is a bit of a, well, here's a bunch of stuff that happened before this, now here's the story, which works enough to get you into the story, but I feel like it could have been done a little better. But I think overall I love this story. I do think it's like damn near perfect. It really does set the bar for what a death of story can do, and I love it all the more for it. And I really like the humanity, not just in his death, but also the characters around him. They all react in such different ways. Like Spider-Man shows up and he just really can't stay in the room with Captain Marvel because he's looked at death so often in his own life that it's just incredibly hard for him. Meanwhile, Marvel's close friend Rick Jones is just kind of like in denial the entire time and loses his opportunity to spend time with his friend while he looks for a cure. And on the other side of that, his main love interest is just so by his side the entire time and accepting of this with him. It's very cool to see the spectrum of emotions around death, and I think it's very incredibly human. Next up is McGraw's dad in Giant Days. McGraw's dad is not really a character in Giant Days. I can't remember a time that we see him in this comic. The main focus of the comic is around 3 university girls who are in university, and I'm saying university because it's not in America, it's in the UK. And McGraw is one of the main characters, so we do spend a lot of times with him. We know the kind of person he is. He's a I can fix this type of character. He's a stoic type of character. He's a very lovable character. In issue 50, we find out that his father dies, and they go to the funeral and they spend time with McGraw. And McGraw's reaction is very, oh, this is okay. Like, he doesn't seem distraught about it. He's not breaking down. He's acting very normal. He does everything to be a good host at the funeral. He's the one shaking hands with people. He's giving people tissue. He's making sure everyone else is doing okay. He's patting people on the back who barely knew his dad or didn't know his dad at all. And the whole time, he just seems like his old regular self. Then he goes to sit down and play chess with someone and just breaks down in tears. Because that's something that him and his dad used to do together. The emotions around this issue really hit home for me at the time. Around the time I was reading this, my grandfather passed away. So for me, it was very connective to have this comic display an emotion that I was feeling very similarly. I was in the same boat where I was reacting pretty normally and pretty like, this is okay, everything's gonna be fine, until there was one moment where I thought about my grandpa in passing, and I had to rush out of my work and go hide in a bathroom stall and bawl my eyes out. Because that's how death hits you. It's unexpected, and so is the grieving process. You have no idea how you will grieve someone's death until it happens. So I have to put this issue in untouchable. It's It's a must read for any comic book fan, for any non-comic book fan, both people who have experienced death and haven't experienced death. It's something that's just so empathetic and understandable. It's human, it's beautiful. And next up is Spider-Man. Fuck! He can't keep getting away with this. He can't keep getting away with this! This time it's Ultimate Spider-Man though, so we're switching it up a little bit. Ultimate Spider-Man is one of my favorite characters, so the death of Ultimate Spider-Man was this big thing for me. It was my Death of Superman moment where I was just kind of like, I'm locked in, I'm running to the store to read this, I'm so terrified. And the one thing I don't like about this event is that it's connected to a different event. There is an Ultimates versus Avengers storyline that's happening at the same time as Death of Superman. Death of Ultimate Spider-Man. And it's not necessary reading, but also all of a sudden Punisher is shooting at Captain America, and that's really the cause of Ultimate Spider-Man's death. He gets accidentally shot by Ultimate Punisher, and I don't know, it's just kind of weird that that's the thing that really weakens him so he can't fight his own supervillains. Or was there something else that was more causational in the story? But in that decision's defense, Ultimate Captain America is a part of Ultimate Spider-Man's story, and he doesn't think Ultimate Spider-Man is ready or ever will be ready for being an Ultimate or being a superhero. He expresses that in the beginning of the story, and then it's Captain America that is being saved by Spider-Man when Spider-Man gets shot. So Spider-Man takes a bullet for Captain America, and I think that's a really beautiful way of doing that death. Because that does bring it all together in this kind of arc for Captain America long term, where he becomes a better person after this. But also for Ultimate Spider-Man, where he is showing everyone like, yeah, I am that guy who will take the bullet. I am the guy that will make the tough calls. I am ready for this. And then he dies. The other things I love about this event is that one, it works really well. The final stand for Ultimate Spider-Man is really strong. It's an accumulation of the entire story so far. And all my favorite boys are there. Doc Ock, oh my god. Oh my god, why'd they do that? Oh my god, why'd they do that to Doc Ock? It's really fun and it's really scary watching him have to fight these people off. And he dies surrounded by all of his friends, which I think was a really nice touch. Ultimate Spider-Man I really want to put in Untouchable because I love it and it was so impactful to me as a reader and writer. But I have to put it in That's How It's Done just because there is some like, oh, this could have been done a little bit better. But really, it is one of my favorite Spider-Man stories, period. And I really hope we don't see this motherfucker on the list again. Next up is the death of Barry Allen, and I'm putting him immediately in And Stay Dead. This isn't me draking haterade or anything. I don't care about Barry Allen, to be fair. I do like Wally West a lot more, but also I just am not that big of a Flash fan in the first place. But also, he doesn't die, really. Like, he gets ripped back to his skeleton, and I'm like, oh, he's super dead. But go talk to anyone who's like a really hard Flash fan, they'll be like, actually, he didn't die. Actually, he was in this, actually, yeah, I don't care. So because of all of that, I'm not even gonna like waste my breath on this. I don't care, respectfully. Next is Death of Wolverine. Death of Wolverine, I think, works really well. Bias is up front. I was reading Wolverine at this point, so I was reading all the way through Death of Wolverine. But the central story itself, the Death of Wolverine, works pretty well. There are some flaws in it. One, I think the art is fantastic for the story. I think it's very grounded and gritty and raw. I also think his actual death is really poetic and beautiful. Just kneeling looking at the sunset while he's covered in adamantium, chef's kiss. But the rest of the story is kind of forgettable. Like, I liked it while I was reading it, but I couldn't tell you a single thing that happened. It's a little bit of like him going through the reins of like, here's where I've been, here's who I am, here's where I'm going, and then he dies. I don't know, it could have been a lot better, but I think it was really good and really strong. And whenever people say like, oh, death of stories don't matter, this is one of those stories I point to where I'm like, yeah, he came back like 5 years later and maybe that shouldn't have happened. You know, actually it shouldn't have happened. But the story itself is very strong and is a good goodbye to Wolverine. So if we didn't have all this meta context of like, oh, they're gonna bring him back, obviously, I think a lot more people would have enjoyed this story if they gave it an actual chance. This one I'm putting in yeah, sure, because while I like the actual death in the story, it's just not that memorable, and I feel like there could have been a lot more done to make it stand out. Now, someone could spend a whole video talking about X-Men. I'm not that guy, pal. But instead I want to talk about House of X #1, which really flips the idea of death in comics on its head. In this comic, we see the death of multiple characters, including Wolverine, Cyclops, and Phoenix. Just memorable people that you're kind of like, oh, there's no way they could kill them off, but then they do. I remember reading this issue the first time and just being blown away by this brave choice to do this. Then the same issue, on the last like 2 pages, they get reborn. This single issue is a fantastic thesis for the idea of what Krakoa is about. It's about new ideas, not just for the X-Men, but for comics in general. Death has become this sanitized thing where readers don't take it seriously anymore. And so the Krakoa era really said, Okay, why should we take it seriously then? What does it mean to be alive when you can never truly die? What happens to your soul after death? What can you do if you had infinite lives? These are some of the questions that the Krakoa era tries to answer. Now, does it succeed? No, but we're not talking about that. We're just talking about this one issue. This issue is very impactful. It revitalized the brand of X-Men, which was failing at the time, surprisingly, and it made it a powerhouse selling IP again. I could talk endlessly about how much the Krakoa era didn't work for me, but this section worked so strongly that I was picking up every single issue of X-Men for like 5 months. My bank account never recovered. So this issue I have to put in untouchable. I think it's just perfect. It's a great way to start off a new storyline for the X-Men, and it's a great way to talk about death in comics. This is a huge conversation starter, and I just love this comic. You'll never see me say anything nice about the Krakoa era ever again. Next, I want to talk about the death of Karen Page. When people think of death in Daredevil, they usually think about Elektra, and I agree. Elektra's death is fantastic, it's tragic, it's beautiful, and that's all I gotta say right now about that. So immediately, without any discussion, Elektra is up there in that's how it's done. But the death of Karen Page is a different story. My relationship with Daredevil reading is very modern. I've read things from Shadowland onwards, but nothing really before that. I read some Bendis, I read some Frank Miller, but besides that, I really didn't read a lot of Daredevil. So when people are talking about the death of Karen Page comic-wise, I always imagined it happened with Frank Miller, and I wondered why people didn't like it. So a few nights ago, I read Born Again, thinking that's where it was gonna happen, and then she didn't die in that. So I was looking it up, and she dies later in a Kevin Smith comic. And I was like, uh-oh, red flag, Kevin Smith's involved. But I gave it a fair chance, and this comic, guys, sucks. Not even for just the death of Karen Page, just overall, the premise is kind of whack. It's about Daredevil discovering a baby is maybe Jesus Christ, but also more likely the Antichrist. And guys, he tries to kill this baby twice. Also, he tries to kill this baby twice in the same exact method. What are we doing? This isn't the Lion King, bro. Take a gun out, do something else. There has to be an easier way. But guys, obviously he doesn't do it because that'd be crazy. But what this comic does do is it gives Karen Page AIDS. And this is a very serious choice to do. Karen Page is a recovering addict who in Born Again actually sells out Daredevil's secret identity and practically ruins his life. Born Again is a huge changing point for comics, and it's one of those things where Frank Miller once again changes what superhero stories are going to be for the rest of time. Kevin Smith's book is not that. It's just edgy for the sake of being edgy. She gets diagnosed with AIDS, but it's actually a secret plot by Mysterio for some reason. Honestly, it's all really stupid. I'm not gonna get too deep into it, but she doesn't actually have AIDS. And when the time comes to have a serious conversation about what it means to give this character AIDS and what that means for Matt Murdock, it doesn't really happen in an interesting way. It's all mostly there just for the sake of drama instead of actually saying something or saying something about the characters even. This whole story just kind of reeks with edginess. I don't like it. This death doesn't work for me. Oh yeah, her death. Bullseye shows up and kills her. That's it. It's not interesting. The fight isn't interesting leading up to it. Nothing about this book is really interesting. Read it at your own discretion. I got nothing else to say. I'm putting this one in not buying it because there's no reason this character should be dead. I don't think they should bring her back. Like, there isn't really anything else to say or to do about it, but it's a sad way to take a character out who was so impactful to the trajectory of comics. I don't know. It sucks. Next up is, Spider-Man again. No. We're not doing Spider-Man again. Spider-Man dies like 90 times. Don't worry about it, guys. We're not talking about it. Let's talk about instead Aunt May. That's right, Aunt May dies at least one time from my recollection, and in this story, it's really, really well done. Aunt May has been dying in the comics since her inception. She is just perpetually at death's door. It's almost a joke at this point that she's always sick and always about to die. It's so much a joke that at one point she gets diagnosed with cancer and no one does anything with that story. It gets said and then we never hear about it ever again. But Aunt May dies at the end of the Clone Saga, along with Ben Reilly, whose death is also pretty sad. It's a great double header in terms of death of stories, because Ben Reilly goes out saving Peter Parker and revealing that he truly is the clone and Peter Parker's original Peter Parker. So it's a big moment for the story, it's a good close off for the Clone Saga, and on top of that, Aunt May's dying this whole time and Peter wants to be at her side, and he gets there just in time for her to say her last words and last breaths. Breath. And breath? Yeah. Oh wait, no. Ben Reilly doesn't die in this. I'm sorry, y'all. I lied. I always thought Ben Reilly died in this story. I'm just totally misremembering this story. See, this is why we read beforehand. Alright guys, I just came back and I reread the story after not reading, I guess, in like 7 years, and I just totally misremembered. This happens like in the middle of the extended Clone Saga. Ben Reilly is still alive. He sees his death and he's not allowed to be there because he can't reveal that, one, he's Spider-Man, and two, that he's connected to these people. So that's even more sad. Ben Reilly sits on the edge of the house crying by himself. He doesn't get to mourn with Aunt May. He doesn't get to mourn with Peter, with Mary Jane. He's alone during this. It makes the story actually a lot better. I gotta move this story. I wasn't gonna put it this high, but I gotta kind of put this story in untouchable. This is a character who should have stayed dead. Aunt May has no reason to be in Spider-Man stories anymore at this point. I don't even remember how she comes back, and I'm not even gonna look into it. But the double header of Peter having to mourn the death of Aunt May, Ben Reilly having to mourn by himself, and Aunt May actually dying. No one touched this story. Let it live. It's a really good story. I'm glad I reread it. Next up is Batman, and once again, DC did it. And once again, DC did the damn thing. And once again, DC did the damn thing where the character's not actually fucking dead. He goes back in time or some bullshit. But it's actually very frustrating for making this list because I want to talk about this story, but he doesn't technically ever die. And Grant Morrison wrote both his return and his death. So it kind of seems like it was always planned for this to happen. So I don't even know what I'm supposed to do here. I mean, I guess everyone thought he was dead for long enough, so we're just gonna call it that he died and talk about it a little bit. He dies in Final Crisis. Darkseid actually wins and takes over Earth for an extended period of time, and there's only one way to stop him, and that's by shooting him in the fucking chest. So Batman takes out that thing, and Darkseid's just kind of like, hey man, I know your thing. You don't kill people. You're not about shooting people. This ain't you. You're not that guy. And Batman looks him dead in the face and goes, call my bluff. And he tries to. He shoots his little death ray lasers at him, and Batman's just like, you chose wrong. Bam! And shoots him. So Batman sacrifices himself to save the day, and it's a really good story. Final Crisis as an event is just really that good. It's also incredibly always relevant, unfortunately. It's about propaganda, it's about fascism, it's a very good story. They go all out for it. Very well done. It's a very good end to Batman's story too. He goes against his principles in order to have finality in this story and in his own arc. I think it's just really well done. Is it untouchable? No, I think in terms of Batman deaths, you kind of would want Batman to die fighting one of his own villains or something. But also at the same time, Batman became this bigger thing than just Gotham. Batman has been this bigger character in superheroes. So for him to have a Justice League story or a world event story be the cause of his death still fits, I think. And now, you would probably think that I'm gonna put this in That's How It's Done. However, that motherfucker should have stayed dead. There was no reason to bring him back. Stay dead. Actually, yeah, let me go on this side tangent real quick. Death is annoying as hell in comics because there's so many replacements. Hawkeye has a good replacement. If he dies, there's no reason to bring him back. Wolverine has a good replacement. If he dies, there's no reason to bring him back. Even Hulk has a good replacement. His death was the only one where I was kind of like, oh yeah, he's dead, but also pretty cool story to come back to. Immortal Hulk is god tier storytelling, and it really makes his death worth coming back and revisiting. A return of Wolverine after Death of Wolverine? Not really that interesting. Captain America story that brings back Steve Rogers? Forgettable, to be honest. Even the return of Bruce Wayne is kind of like, okay, but not really even nearly as impactful as his death. That's really the problem with death stories having a return story, is that the return stories rarely are as exciting or impactful as the death story. So it makes the question be, why are we even bringing them back? And then you remember, oh yeah, money. Some characters who have mantles that can be passed on fucking die. Next we have Miss Marvel. This is a story that I have no energy for. This is during Zeb Wells' very controversial Spider-Man run, and I just don't have anything to say at this point about that, but what I can say about this is that the death of Miss Marvel was so poorly handled. Marvel will tell you that Miss Marvel was a character in this book in the lead up to this. She was not. She was a side character at best. She barely spoke, she had nothing to do, she wasn't impactful to the story whatsoever, and she dies as a fake out so that she could get resurrected later in a different story. It's lame, it's spectacle, it's stupid. It's all about marketing. It's not a real story. It's not even a real death. So I really just don't like this. Matter of fact, I hate it. I hate this story. I think it really is just boring, lazy, and dumb. I don't care if it was writing. I don't care if it was editorial. I don't care who's involved. This story was just plain out wrong for her. And honestly, I wouldn't have been this visceral about it except for that, again, there was just no lead up to her as a character in this book. She was not a character in this book. She was a piece to move around and play with. It's despicable. And for a Muslim character who is so groundbreaking and has one of the best comic runs of all time, just fucking pathetic. I'm putting this in not buying it, but really this deserves an F rating. And the last death I want to talk about today is Gwen Stacy. There's been a lot of Spider-Man talk, obviously, and there's been a lot of deaths in Spider-Man history. From Uncle Ben to the Green Goblin, to Kraven the Hunter, to the Green Goblin, to Ben Reilly, to the Green Goblin, to Captain Stacy. But Gwen Stacy is a death that hangs over not just Spider-Man, but comics as a whole, as something that was groundbreaking for the time. Before Death of Superman, before Death of Captain Marvel, there was Gwen Stacy, the original tragic girl. And I've read all of Amazing Spider-Man at some point in my life. Yeah, all of it. I don't know how I did it. It's not something I'm proud of, but it is something that happened. And the death of Gwen Stacy is the moment that really changes Spider-Man for me. The early days of Spider-Man really plays into the teen drama and romance angle, which is what made the book so successful in the first place. It continues this soap opera drama as it goes along, and it really works very well. And when Gwen Stacy, Harry Osborn, and Mary Jane really get into the mix of things, there's a lot of personality clashes, which really works for the book. And Gwen Stacy's dynamic with Peter is very good, because where Mary Jane was still kind of experimental, and it was very clear Stan Lee did not love that character but felt like he had to write her, I guess, for some reason. Gwen Stacy did feel like his golden girl, the girl he wanted to write for Peter. And this is not to diss Mary Jane Watson, who I absolutely adore. Like, I'm a big Black Cat fan, but Mary Jane is that girl, and she's like untouchable in my eyes. But again, the dynamic between Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker was very fun. I will say Gwen Stacy did also suffer from something I like to call Stan Lee writing woman, but who among us hasn't? Suffered from Stan Lee, I mean. Kirby gang. So it was a big decision to kill off your main love interest, and not only that, but have it be at your own hero's hand. Like, Spider-Man doesn't kill Gwen Stacy, but he also kills Gwen Stacy. It's a great moment of shame and tragedy, and I think it works very well. And so while the death doesn't work, I think, for the character of Gwen Stacy, it works overall for the story and the story going forward. It's the defining moment that really helps define Peter Parker, Mary Jane, and the Green Goblin as characters. And it's what really cements the book in history. So this is a death that I think doesn't serve the character in the same way that the other ones do, so I want to put it lower, but it is untouchable because of the impact it had, and it really is the golden standard that people still try to reach when they're trying to get an impactful death. It totally changed the feel of the book, and clearly it changed history. So it's hard to call it not the golden standard, even if I do think it's textbook fridging. I feel like Gwen Stacy is the right one to go out on. Obviously, there's a lot more deaths in comics. I didn't even talk about recent ones like Doctor Strange, but this is my official ranking of the best deaths in comics. That's right, official, objective, no hold bars, no judgment, no change up, straight up facts. Best deaths in comics. This is how they rank. Did I hit all the deaths that you were expecting? Did you agree with everything I said about each death? If so, or if not, feel free to leave a comment and let me know. And as always, I'm your host. Do I say that at the end of videos? I don't think I do. And per usual, I'm Evan Von Doom. What do I say? And after you leave a comment, feel free to subscribe. But I'm not gonna beg you. I'm not even gonna tell you. I'm just gonna ask. Please. All right, bye.